I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: how much power should the government have? Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because I've gone to the viewer mailbag and I've received the following question from Captain Nemo. Hello, Mr. Malone. It's not often I get called Mr. Malone. It's probably why I'm wearing my teacher's jacket today too. YouTube is full of people who will tell you what a government can't do to its people. The examples are many: jailing people for jokes, restricting speech, confiscating guns, searching homes without a warrant, mandating a one-size-fits-all health plan for the masses, etc., etc. The list goes on. But something that gets left out of the debate is what are the powers that most people agree the government should be allowed to have? What powers would a society be okay with giving to a governing body? He then goes on to quote a lengthy section of the American Constitution about these issues. Now, here's what I think. I think what we've lost sight of in our culture in relation to this question is the important principle of subsidiarity. And the idea of subsidiarity is that your state, your central government, the state, should not be doing things which local government or even family are actually capable of doing. So the state should not become your mother. It should not become like God. It should not be this all-encompassing thing which is doing more and more of the things that in actual fact local governing bodies should be doing, and even lower than that, families. I don't mean lower in importance, but just lower in the structure of sort of authority, if you like, or smaller. The family should actually be doing. And I would say today one of the big problems we've got is that more and more we are seeing the central state, the government, the state doing things. We've invested it with a power that it really shouldn't be wielding. And I think part of the thing too is though that often the state has to do that because we now live very individualistic lives, and so we don't live often even connected to our families very well, and we certainly don't live in groups of families, or in the West this is sort of the general norm anyway, and groups of families are living in what you might call a tribal way. And I don't mean tribe as in campfires and throwing spears. I mean groups of families living life together. They suffer. They have joys, they experience the highs and the lows, they support and nurture each other. And so what happens is if you don't have groups of people living local community well, then guess what? You need a big state to try and fill in all the blanks that are missing in people's lives, particularly when it comes to support. I think the other thing too is we've lost perhaps a bit of our resilience, our self-resilience, and I think more and more we look outside of ourselves, we look for a solution outside of ourselves. You know, someone's always going to come and save me. There's always going to be a safety net. Now, the other extreme, of course, to that is that we go too individualistic and we, damn everyone else. It's all about you and getting what you want and no one else is coming for you. That's the exact opposite problem. So we don't want that either. Instead, what's missing, I think, really is that genuine, authentic community where people actually care for other people. They care about the people around them and what happens to them. One of the interesting things I was reading recently was about the Amish people. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should become Amish. Don't panic. But one interesting thing about the Amish people is that they have a limit on the type of technology that is used within their communities. And the way they limit it is they say basically that any technology which destroys community, genuine community between people, is something that they don't tolerate. So one of the things that they don't do is they don't do private insurance. What they instead have is a focus in their communities where everyone cares for the needs of everyone else. So if someone's house burns down, the idea is that the rest of the community is supposed to actually help that person out and be there for them. And I think there's something very good and healthy about that. Whereas private insurance, what happens is the individual homeowner or the individual, the family, whoever they are, they contract individually with a big corporation, and then they rely on that corporation to come to their aid instead of the community. You see how all of a sudden they are jumping right over the top of the heads of the local community, and they're now sort of creating a relationship between themselves and a big corporation to sort of try and save them and meet their needs. Well, I think we do the same sort of thing with central government often. We now have this idea that we need the government to save us. It's got to be there to fix us. And so we're forgetting about subsidiarity, and we're jumping right over the heads of local community, and we're just relying more and more and more on the state to be like Mother, to be like God, to be that all-powerful authority that's going to be there to meet our every need. But like I said, I think the key question that needs to be answered here is, can the family do this well? Can the local community do this well? Well, if they can, then those are the things they should be doing, and those are the things the state shouldn't be doing. And in actual fact, when you start to look at it, there's a lot of things that the local community, local governance does a lot better than a centralised state does, especially as you get bigger and bigger, like in the number of people living in a country or how spread out and diverse a country might be. And now with the whole thing of globalism, now there's sort of this expectation effectively that we're almost going to have some sort of centralised, and you look at the EU as an example of this, centralised governance of countries. How the heck can you actually expect like the EU to govern a group of countries which are so diverse in a way that is actually going to help human flourishing and that's going to be effective and well managed, that doesn't just become an unruly sort of bureaucracy? Well, I don't think they're doing a particularly good job of it. And I think that's a great example of where, when you lose sight of subsidiarity, you start investing too much authority and too much expectation on the state. The state is not your mother. The state is not a God. The state shouldn't be all-powerful. As I said, my firm belief is the state should really only be doing things that the local community is incapable of doing. It should only be doing things that the family is incapable of doing. And if the local community is capable of doing something, if the family is capable of doing something, that's what those communities, including families, that's what they should be doing. If they can't do it, then the state should be stepping up at that point. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. There's a link in the description below and a link on screen at the end of this video. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily Question.